Now, if I ever need help making something sound musical, I usually just call upon the help of woodland creatures, and they help me with my chores, and everything is settled. I realize not everyone has that luxury. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make your horrible guitar playing a little more musical in nature. Now, what does musical really mean? A lot of it is kind of subject to opinion, but the mistake that I notice like a lot of maybe like beginner players do is maybe they'll learn like a chord and then like a scale, and then they're playing just sounds like a scale, or it sounds like they're playing arpeggios or something, because it's kind of like there's no space. It's always like, right, and there's not a lot of space. So what I think musicality is like having enough space between the notes you're playing to kind of create some kind of melody. So I made a backing track that goes along with this. And what we're going to do is we're going to take one part of a bar and we're going to have a chord to kind of implant the rhythm of it, and then we're going to work on what you can play melodically over next to that chord before we switch to a different chord, okay? So the backing track is going to sound like this. And the reason I set it up that way is because the drum kit is going to kind of like guide you along, and on the screen the chords are going to change, so you're not going to get lost and you'll never, kind of forget which part you are. And if you like this kind of style backing track, these are the same backing tracks that I had in the class, the master class that I made, so if you're interested in that, click the link below. But basically we're going to start with the F major chord. Okay, rocking this Gibson SG, and really, we can just play it with the four middle strings like 3A, 3D, middle finger 2G, pointer finger 1B. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if we have a 4 count, the first 3 counts are going to be like the lower part of the chord, and then that third beat is going to be kind of like the full chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. Because again, we're going to kind of like add to this, so we don't want this kind of solid block of chords where it's like, because again, not musical. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have 4 beats to do something else, and the count that I want this to be is going to be 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And again, in that backing track, it's just going to be, you'll hear a drum on the 1, the and of 1, the 2, the and of 2, and then there's going to be space, and it's just going to be the 3, 4. Okay? So what I mean by how you can kind of add that melodically, we can do something like this, which is just a 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Okay, now that was a very basic, simple F major arpeggio that goes with this F. In fact, if you want to know it, it's 1 on the E string, 3 to 5, all on the E string, 1 and 2 and, right? Those are like your first 4 notes that you're playing. You end up on the 3rd fret of the A string. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And then on that 3 count, you can hammer from 3 to 5. And then on the 4 count, you have room to maybe add some vibrato. So there's a little bit of space there to do something instead of, which is a great drill to practice on speed. But again, musicality is kind of what we're going for. So if we wanted to just use a simple arpeggio there, we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And again, you can change the count up however you want. I think another thing that we can do is start it on the octave, because if we have a contrast between something low and something high, I think it sounds also a little bit more musical as far as just kind of like a single guitar playing. So this shape, we can repeat, starting on the 3rd fret of the D string. 3, 5, 7, 5G, hammer on, back to 5G. So now we have F. And again, if that's too fast, and again, the backing track is at a little bit of a slower tempo, but you can always leave a lot of those beats out. Really, whatever kind of space you want to create, just make sure you're doing it as a count. And the count we're focusing again is 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Over and over again. Now, the only 3 chords in this are going to be an F major. Then we're going to go to its 4 chord, B flat. You do the same shape, just here on the 6th fret, rooted on the E string. And then a lot of people would think that we're going for a 1-4-5 like a blues thing to a C. No, because a 1-4-5 isn't musical. Come at me. We're going to go to a D minor. That's going to be the third chord, and then maybe back to the 4 chord, and then back home. Okay, so the progression is going to be F, B flat, D minor, B flat, F. Okay, so we kind of have things that we can use over 2 major chords or 1 minor chord. Another video you might want to look at if you just want different ideas of how to do this is another one I'll link you to. I posted, I think, like a week or 2 ago, where it's like any major chord where your ring finger is, these 2 notes, and these 2 notes will always sound good together. So you can do an F major chord. These notes are just available to you. That's something else that you can do, but try to do it in that 1 and 2 and 3, 4 count. Another thing that's really cool is double stops. I want to talk about double stops with the D minor portion of this backing track. And again, 2 ways you can play D minor are 1 on the high E string, 3 on the B string, 2 on the G string, open D. I think a better way to do this would be maybe playing this D minor bar chord rooted on the 5th fret of the A string, 5, 7 D, 7 G, 6 B, or even all the way down here on the 10th fret of the low E string. The reason I like this one is because then we can use this minor pentatonic position 1 to fill in those 1 and 2 and 3, 4 type spots, right? So we can jump from this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, like that, right? Just kind of going through that scale. The great thing about that is the hammer-ons make it a lot easier. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, right? You can do that. You can double stop through them like we said before, where you just play 2 notes at a time. So it's 1 and 2 and 3, 4. I'm just striking the D and the G strings at the same time, and then getting 10 D and 10 G. And just kind of hammering on 10 to 12 on the D string, but still letting 10 G ring out. I think double stops are a very musical way to kind of go through scales so they sound less like scales, you know? Like even, and honestly, if you see a player play something like, in my mind, I'm thinking of the D minor pentatonic scale, but that's not necessarily what anybody's thinking. These are just different ways you can navigate to a D minor. Any way you want to slice this up. Now, one example of just maybe playing this, you don't need the backing track to play it. I think the backing track is nice because it kind of keeps you locked into a rhythm. But if you want to work on your own internal rhythm, and you're just kind of counting in your head, again, all these different things you can jump to and kind of interchange them almost like a puzzle. Like, you don't have to wait to be on a D minor to play the D minor pentatonic position, right? You can play it over the F chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. To the B flat. B flat, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, D minor. D minor. All this stuff is interchangeable when you stay in the same key, right? In fact, a lot of times, you know, maybe like a D minor chord is going to sound great if you're thinking in D minor and you're playing the notes of like the D minor scale or a D minor arpeggio over a B flat. You know, that could be something very interesting because those 2 chords combine to maybe make something a little more beautiful. Anyways, so I think this is a good way to maybe kind of supplement however it is that you practice in a more musical way, because we're using a lot of like the same things that maybe you are already drilling, whether they're just, you know, scales, whether they're arpeggios, or, you know, whatever it is that your practice session might consist of. But we're doing it in a way where there's structure between different chords in the same key, and we're doing it where there's a count 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And if you get super bored of that count, which hopefully eventually you will, then you can start just adding up different things. It's really just knowing where you want to do it. Instead of going 1 and 2 and 3, 4, maybe you want to go 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? So 1, 2, 3 and 4, D minor, 1, 2, 3 and 4, just like that, right? any of those counts, once you start leaving space, is going to kind of have its own sound. And then eventually you don't have to consciously count it anymore. You can kind of just feel where that space is. And then hopefully your playing will eventually sound more musical. But again, who am I to judge? So anyways, hopefully you like this video. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. Make sure you click on that backing track if you like how that all is put together. Check out the masterclass, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.